Hi, my name is Adam Hansman, and I was born April 28th, 1979. My sobriety date is 9/25/19, and I have a sponsor who has a sponsor who works his steps. Where do I start, man? So I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My mom and dad weren't rich. You know, we didn't have a lot of shit, but we had food, we had stuff and things, I guess, I didn't really, when I was younger, I didn't remember being poor or wealthy or any of that. I remembered my first and earliest memory of childhood was, my family getting together at my grandmother's house and running around and taking drinks of their drinks that they left on the counter of alcohol and smelling like a really pungent smell of marijuana in the back room from my uncles going back there and smoking pot. All my life I wanted to fit in somewhere, I didn't feel like I ever fit in. And when I was about 9 or 10 years old, I started drinking for the first time. And from the first time I got drunk, that's what the effect I was looking for. And that's what I searched for my whole addiction career, was to feel numb and not feel it all. I was a full-blown heroin addict by the time I was 14 and dibbled and dabbled in many substances, probably all the substances you can think of, as a kid. But the one thing that always I went back to and justified was alcohol. It was socially acceptable, and there's bars and liquor stores, and I mean on every corner, unless you live in a dry county or something like that. When I was about 5 years old, my family moved from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to Georgia, and that's where my childhood using and drinking and things like that started. When I was about 19, I moved to New York. Went through a lot of stuff in New York, and continued to drink and get high. Didn't really ever hold down a job. I looked for any way to escape the way that I felt through a lot of things. Drugs, money, sex, possessions, relationships, whatever I could get to defocus the pain that was inside of me. And that pain was from not being accepted, from being pushed away. My mom and dad divorced when I was a young kid. And I never understood why, but they had their differences and they divorced. I always grew up with that mentality that family sticks together and family is, always supposed to be there for you. I heard that growing up. I never saw it. When I was about 13 years old, I left home for the first time and went on an adventure with my friends. When I was like 16, 17, 18 years old, I was dealing drugs and doing drugs and drinking, and it didn't matter what substance you had as long as I could get high off of it. That's what I did. When I was 20, I moved back to Florida, and there I spent the better part of close to a decade, and off and on in Florida and Georgia. And when I was probably about 30 years old, about 10 years ago, I decided to just go on the road full time and travel. Well, I left Buffalo, New York, and stints of jail and this and that and being extradited. I've done all that. But then I met a girlfriend of mine, and I settled in Oregon for about close to 3.5 years and helped raise her son. And then I left because his real dad came back. And so I went back to Buffalo and stayed there for a time. Went back to Georgia, went to North Carolina, and then went to, no matter where I went, there I was, man. I was the problem, you know. I was always trying to fix my problem with a geographical solution or, you know, whatever I could, except for sitting down and facing and getting the help that I needed to face my mental health and my addiction problems. And like I said, my sobriety date is 9/25/19, and I have a sponsor in AA who has a sponsor and has worked his steps on him, and now my sponsor works his steps on me, and I'm going to continue that eventually and have a sponsee and work my steps on them. But what I wanted to talk about is the stigma of mental health. For years I didn't address my mental health because of all the stigmas that surround mental health, and I'm here to tell you, man, like, part of recovery is addressing mental health issues. I know for myself, I can only speak for myself, that I have mental health issues that I've never addressed. I was diagnosed bipolar, type 1 bipolar with acute mania, antisocial personality disorder, extreme PTSD, and depression. So I'm not currently taking medications for these disorders, but I am seeking out counseling and mental health counseling and group therapy. I've been to inpatient treatment and graduated that, and I graduated my outpatient treatment, and now I'm in relapse prevention and mental health counseling twice a week. And I just wanted to give a shout out to any of y'all that are going through recovery, that have doubts and are struggling, that it gets better. Sometimes you don't feel like it. You go to those really dark places in your mind. And, you know I do. But you have to find that one thing to focus on to pull yourself out of those dark places. Whatever it is, you have to focus on that. And I just wanted to give a message out to you guys that there is hope, there is peace, there is, something worth working for. I found it. It's a struggle, but I continue to do it, and I'll post more videos. Hit the like button, subscribe to me. I'm gonna do more of these talks about recovery and mental health and see if they help some people, try to reach out and give back. Anyway, my name's Adam Hansman, and I'm here to help. Thanks.